Right off the top, I gotta say that I was thoroughly impressed by the first 8 episodes of Generation, a new LGBTQ series now on HBO Max. I would call this show Euphoria meets Booksmart with just a dash of Love, Victor. And I have to say, of all of the LGBTQ-centric shows that have come around, specifically like in the last 5 years, I would argue that Generation is among the best of those shows that we've gotten. Now, the one thing I discovered about this season is that they are splitting the season in half. So this is part 1 of season 1. And I don't know when we're gonna get part 2, but it's a full 8 episodes, but then there's gonna be 8 more episodes coming eventually, but we don't know when. I don't even know if they've been shot necessarily. This almost kind of felt like a full first season with these 8 episodes, so I'm just going to review it based on these 8 episodes. But don't worry, this is gonna be spoiler free and I'm not gonna go into plot details. What impressed me so much about this show was that it wasn't melodramatic, it didn't take cheap swings, it didn't feel like it was watered down, it didn't feel like it was pandering to the Disney Channel or ABC Family crowd. The depiction of teenagers is so incredibly realistic, especially in today's teenagers. From diversity to technology to sexual orientation, what kept me engaged is how I felt I could see these characters. I could see these teenage kids literally walking around with their group of friends in Hollywood, like right on the street. They felt so real, they felt so organic. They were able to introduce so many characters in just 30-minute episodes for only 8 episodes and be able to give almost all of them their due diligence when it comes to developing each and every single one of them and appreciating every single one of them. Even though I have favorites, I would not exclude or take away any of the main characters. And some are obnoxious, but I wouldn't take them away because they add to the balance of everyone altogether. The acting is phenomenal. It's amazing from across the board, from all the kid characters to the adult characters. I do have like a top 3 favorites by the end of the 8 episodes. I can say that my top 3 favorites are number 1, Justice Smith, who is arguably the lead of the show as Chester. Number 2 would be Haley Sanchez as Greta. And number 3 would be Lukita Maxwell as Delilah. Now, the tricky thing about LGBTQ shows or movies is that when they are depicting stereotypes or tired tropes that might feel a little bit overdone or run the risk of being overacted or over-exaggerated, that's where it can lose me. But they introduced characters that fit some of those tropes, but it felt like a real person. It felt like, okay, this is actually like how this real person would be in real life. Justice Smith, for example, as Chester, his characteristic is, you know, the don't give 2 fucks, super confident, super charismatic, super flamboyant. He played him so well, but he wasn't obnoxious. So often those characters are very obnoxious to me with how they're written, and they feel very one note, and they're just there to be loud and obnoxious and flamboyant and super gay. But his performance did not come off that way at all, as in, like, though he is so animated, he is so extroverted, he does have a I don't give 2 fucks kind of fabulous personality. I loved his character and I loved the nuance they gave him. Another stereotypical trope is like the feminist activist played by Lukita Maxwell. That could have felt like a tired stereotype that we've seen so many times, but it was so, it was funny at times, but very well realized. She became such a dimensional character, it didn't feel like a caricature. These are stereotypes, character stereotypes or tropes that can be played way too over the top or way too unorganic. But they didn't do that here, which made me so happy. I was honestly very surprised how much story they were able to pack in for all these characters over the span of 8 episodes, with each episode only being 30 minutes long. It's a very easy binge, by the way. I was so pleasantly surprised by how much good story they were able to pack in for almost all of these characters, and it not feel rushed. It was also a really funny show, but without being dumb, while also being equally emotional in handling these character-driven moments. It doesn't stray from capturing these characters in vulnerable moments, and it made me cry by the end of this first half of the season. I got emotionally involved, and they are put in very realistic young adult teenage situations, some that I'm sure we all can empathize with, to where it would be traumatic, or it would be embarrassing, from family issues at home to falling in love to online dating to crushes or dealing with your sexual identity. There's a kid that struggles with coming out of the closet. Yes, one of those stereotypical tropes, but also works well, and it was believable. I also loved how this show presented itself structurally, because it starts off by showing us, by showcasing an event that's happening, a very intense event. But this is a present day event, and it's gonna flash back to the months or weeks leading up to it. And that spans over the entire season. And I loved that, going back and forth between this evolving big event that you get more and more answers for, but then you keep going back in time to see where these characters are and how it gets to this event. I thought it worked incredibly well. And everyone has their own issues. So you might be more entertained by one character's arc over another. I personally didn't have an issue with them kind of hopping back and forth to focus on what was happening to this character, because ultimately it does all tie together, and everyone plays a part in the overall picture that is being presented, showcasing these young individuals. Like I said, it was very well paced, but there are some episodes that might slow things down to really focus on a relationship or character interaction or family dynamic. But then there are other capsule episodes where an event is happening, from a road trip to a school lockdown or maybe a party, to really shake things up. But it kept me actively engaged and excited from episode to episode. This is one of my favorite new shows I've seen. This is one of the best LGBTQ shows I have seen in like the last 5 to 10 years, honestly. And even though this is treated as a first half of the first season, it kind of felt like a complete first season, to where a lot of the overarching stories, or some of them, are resolved, and you feel a sense of finality by the end of the 8th episode, while also teeing up lots of like storylines for what's to come next. I also love that even though this is like an LGBTQ show, it doesn't feel like it's only made for an LGBTQ audience. I think that this is a type of show that is accessible to everyone. There are so many characters and so many personalities and so many situations, to where I argue that almost everyone, no matter where you're at, can kind of pull certain scenarios or storylines or characters that you relate to. It's a very modern, relatable, socially present show that happens to shine a beautiful spotlight on an amazingly talented, diverse cast of characters, portraying all colors, shapes, and sizes and orientations, without feeling like it's trying to preach to you or knock a message into your brain. It's sentimental without feeling preachy. It is funny without feeling cheesy. And it has depth and drama without feeling melodramatic. There isn't one bad episode I would skip. It moves steadily along, and I thought all the characters were fantastic, and I can't wait to see them explored even more in future seasons to come. I'm going to give Generation, the first half of season 1, an A. And that's my review for you. You can currently watch the first 8 episodes of Generation on HBO Max. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on it, so feel free to leave those down below. And as always, thank you all again for tuning in. Until next time, I am Ryan Bamey, signing off. Bye, everyone.